town council has advised us, as requested, that associate members cannot be appointed. It has to be, if you do appoint members, it has to be the alternate members with the voting authority. And that's to discretion of the board if they wish to appoint members to do such. So it's in the board's discretion at this point.
Well, I read through the town councils, and I think I'm left with questions as to, they spoke that they need additional members for whatever reason. And it looked like that, I'm not sure I understand it completely, but it states it may be technically possible to amend and authorize the appointment of such members and so on and so forth, but it just seems like we've left this thing up in the air.
If I may, no, we haven't, Mr. Rowe. But I knew that Mr. Solomon could not make this meeting. So I'm going to be talking to Mr. Solomon and possibly bring him into our next meeting. So if any of the board members have a question directly for him, they'll be able to answer it. Now, my understanding from town council is we do have to appoint alternates and not associates. That's the way I read that. That's the way I read that ruling on that. So I would expect that we'll probably have Mr. Solomon in and make an appointment or appointments at our next meeting. That's if he can make it. Because I know the board has some questions directly.
Along with that, we have 2 resignations from the police station building committee.
Right.
Are we going to try to fill them?
I haven't decided yet whether we'll do that. I want to give that a little more thought. We probably will.
When are we gonna, when are we gonna decide whether we are or we aren't?
Well, I just haven't been prepared yet to discuss it, to be very honest with you. I'm just not sure whether we want to do that right now or hold off.
Well, it would be discussed then at our next meeting?
Yeah, possibly, yes. Yeah,
Possibly?
yeah, possibly.
I mean, why?
Well, because I'm actually thinking of maybe another situation another course of action that I will bring up to the board. But I just want to think about it a little bit further. Which could possibly be a whole new police station building committee.
Well, I'd like to have it brought up at the next meeting, because I'd like to get it straightened out before we go to town meeting and before we take further action.
Yep.
I think it's something that we should be doing.
We can put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
That would be fine.
Yep.
Mr. Mann, is that definite on the agenda, or is make my notes here? Police station building committee?
Yeah, let's put it on the
Okay.
agenda for the next meeting.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Mr. Mulder?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything else, but in the interest of killing a few more minutes, because John Desimone of the Elementary School Building Committee was supposed to come here and give an update on the situation with the committee. However, he is going to be here at 8:30, and since it's 8:05 and we're near the end, I'm not sure what you want to do. But just generally,
Look at my list.
Yeah, he needs 20 minutes.
Well, generally, the school building committee has been meeting on a regular basis since October town meeting. John Desimone is the chairman, and they've been working very hard. Ms. Glue is here in the audience tonight as well. They have gone through picking an architect. The architect has met with them on an extensive basis. And last Thursday, there was a meeting involving the architects and the school building committee. The Historic District Commission, a couple members were there also for that. I have to commend what the school building committee has done. They've done really a fantastic job. They've spent a lot of time And the architects that they chose, I was very impressed with, very impressed. And they presented some ideas to the school building committee, 3 possible options. The school building committee has asked the architects to go back and work with a hybrid of 2 of the options. The designs that were presented were impressive to a degree. I went there not expecting very much, and I was impressed with their ideas, and I'm sure it's something that they can work with and move forward with, and we'll see how it goes. I hope I didn't steal John's thunder, but we'll see when he comes in. But basically, that's where they stand right now. The architect is going back to see what can be developed for a future meeting, and see where they go from there. So basically, again, commend the elementary school building committee. They're working very hard and very diligent. They're trying to come up with a single answer by March, and that is the reason on the April town meeting we have a elementary school building committee article placeholder. So hopefully with their hard work and the decisions of the school committee, we'll have an answer in March and go forward from there. That's all I have for now.
Mr. Murphy?
Long list.
Go ahead.
The Reading Light issue, I'm somewhat dismayed that it appears there are going to be 2 separate audits. Is that still the case?
That's true.
So there will be, in fact, 2 separate audits.
Right. Yes, there will be.
So one can compete with the other in terms of what's real and what's not.
Yeah, one could look at it that way, yes.
No. Dismayed by that.
Right.
Just a comment. The Ferry meeting is still tomorrow?
Tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock, room 14.
Okay. I want to take a moment to thank Ed Nolan, Lieutenant Nolan, and Danny Jones, Sergeant Jones, for their service on the police station building committee. I know that they did not write these letters of resignation easily. As you can, I think the board has copies of the letters. You can see from their long, almost 7-year tenure on the committee. It's long service, and I'm sure, and I spoke with Lieutenant Nolan, and I'm sure Danny would do the same, is assist the committee and the community as we move forward on that issue. And it's a shame that a project is not yet moving forward on that. I would also like to bring up the memorandum to the board from Mr. Younger regarding Selectmen's policy, it's dated January 9th. Our policy 1.20 states that any board member may place an article on the town meeting warrant without additional approval of the board. And if you read the North Reading Code, section 172.20, this was all in his memorandum, that by an affirmative vote of at least 3 members of said board, they may omit any article from any town meeting warrant, regular or emergency, except, Part B is except in the case, and I'm paraphrasing, except in the case of citizen's petition or something required by the Commonwealth. So our policy is in direct conflict with the town, is in conflict with the town code. It's probably no secret to any of you that I'm opposed to our policy. I would ask that it be for some additional direction of the board. As I see it, 2 options. One would be to rescind our policy so that any single member could not. Or the second would be to rescind the policy and write a new policy which would require an affirmative vote of the board in order to place an article on the warrant. That's not, that being different from the board voting for affirmative action on an article, because I think those are two separate and distinct issues. I may be willing to put an article on the warrant, but I may not be willing to support that article. To me, those are two separate things. But I don't think any individual selectman acting alone should be able to place it on the warrant. So I think it should be an affirmative action of the board to set the warrant. Again, not setting the warrant does not mean
Right.
that they support those articles. So I put that out on the floor. I'd be happy to draft a policy for the board's review and so forth, but I need some level of direction.
Well,
from the
I
board.
I did plan to tell Mr. Younger, but to request of Mr. Younger, to put policies and procedures on our next meeting, because I have one I'm gonna bring up under my new and old business. I guess personally, if you're looking for some input tonight, I would be in favor of just doing away with our policy and procedure and leaving it that 3 members could remove one. I think that you could run into a situation where you're not really in favor of the article and you don't really want to vote no, don't put it on there, or yes, put it on there. So just, if a member brings it up and wants to put it on there, unless 3 members are opposed to it, handle it that way. That's the way I guess my recommendation would be to just do away with our policy and procedure that was put in there and go by the town bylaw. That's my opinion. Mr. Rowe.
Well, I disagree, but I think we do have 2 conflicting policies here, we should clear them up. I myself would like to see it so that an individual selectman can put an article on his own. I think, because a lot of times I think a minority article could be the correct article, and I think if an individual selectman has enough people out there requiring or requesting an article, especially where a lot of times these things are at late dates, I think it would be the benefit of all the citizens of the town to allow an individual selectman to put an article on.
Well,
So, but I agree that we have that as a selectmen's policy now, but what Mr. Murphy just read, the town policy says we can't do it, so we do have to.
well, the town bylaw supersedes our policy.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying we have done it as a policy, we have done it in the past, and I'm not too sure that prevents us from doing it.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, if we merely rescind our policy, then an individual selectman could put it on the warrant. However, under the town code, by a vote of 3 members of the board, it will be removed.
It would be removed.
So an individual, quote unquote, could act alone in putting it on there. But what we've got now is something where we've got a policy that's in conflict. So it doesn't necessarily change anything to rescind it, in my opinion. I think where it gets more difficult is if we write a new policy, then we could be arguing the language and the merits forever.
Right.
So I think rescinding it takes away the conflict with the town code, and it still lets an individual selectman put something forward. But if 3 members, if 3 members stay silent, if the majority stays silent, it will stay on. But if 3 members
Say no.
say no and vote it, they can actually vote it off the warrant.
Mr. Muldoon.
Mr. Chairman, I do see this policy, these 2 policies, as mutually exclusive. It's actually possible for one selectman to put it on the town meeting warrant, and then 3 to remove it in the next breath. Being the last one that used this policy, the reason, I don't mean to rehash what happened months ago, but I put that on because I wanted to have all the